Hey designers, welcome back to another episode here where we talk about all things XR, future tech, and design. And today, I really want to demystify this process for you with making something that is fairly simple using an art piece that you probably have already saved in a hard drive somewhere in your old projects or old work from college or something like that. So that's literally what I did. So I did that, and thankfully I had it saved somewhere using Adobe Aero, After Effects, Photoshop, and Adobe XD. We're gonna make something pretty cool, and it's gonna be a like AR art gallery experience where, and it's funny, in art galleries and in most museums, of course, you can't touch the art. But here on tap, we're gonna be able to trigger a UI card that comes out that'll show you or show the user, viewer, anybody, the description. So like who made it, what it's about, etc., etc. Honestly, you can put anything you want on this card. It's completely up to you. Before we jump into it, I do want to let all of you know if at any point in time I move too fast or too slow during this tutorial, please let me know in a comment below and I'll be happy to expand upon it further to help you out in your own creation. And with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into it. Okay, so we're gonna start with the image first. Now, this is a heavily doctored image. You can imagine how many layers were actually in this to create the experience that I wanted in the end result. I limited my layers to 2. So the image itself and clouds that will be animated a little bit later. So hopefully whichever art piece you end up pulling from your external hard drive or whatever, try to limit your files and individually export them as PNGs to work with them later in Adobe Aero. So how you do that is highlighting the layer that you want to export and going to File and Export, Quick Export as PNG. And I'm not going to do that because I've already done it for these files, but just wanted to show you really quickly how to do that. So we're going to exit out of Photoshop, don't save, the wheel of death, and I'm gonna head over to my project file here. As you can see, I have my cloud file and my project, the image file. So with that, we're just gonna really quickly open up Adobe XD. Now, I'm not gonna make the card element because I'm assuming everyone here pretty much knows how to make this. It's a rectangle. It's really nothing fancy here with a drop shadow. Whoops, that's an inner shadow. A drop shadow here and some text. So you can make this in any shape, way, or form and just put a title, the artist names, a little piece about the art itself. Any information you'd like to put on this card, just make sure that when you export it again as a PNG there. So moving on to After Effects, open up Adobe After Effects. Now at any point in time, if you want to use Figma, Sketch, Adobe XD, any one of them, of course, as you may know, will be very easy to make that rectangle with the information and the title card. So choose any program you'd like. I just happen to choose Adobe XD for this project example. So now that we have Adobe After Effects open, we want to animate our image. And how do we do that? So we're going to make a new composition here. The important settings are the size of the canvas, and I want to make the canvas size the same size as this Photoshop image. And I actually have the dimensions, but you can actually look at the information here, 1080 by 1350, which matches here 1080 by 1350. This important part right here is the frame rate. Because Adobe Aero likes to work with smaller files, it's important to try to make your files as small as possible. So 15 is good enough. And then lastly, the duration of the animation will be 4 seconds. So we have that right here. And this is pretty much it. We're gonna select OK. We're gonna go ahead and drag and drop our image. We don't see anything happening quite yet because we haven't put it down here and boom. So we're going to make a really quick animation. It's going to be sort of like a cinemagraph. You might be familiar with them, but as usual, we want to keep one layer that is untouched, which will be this one, and we'll duplicate it by Command C and Command V. Now this one, I'm just going to color it blue, so there, color it red, so there's a bit of a differentiation between the layers here, so we know which one we're applying the effect to. And we're going to go ahead and select the Puppet Position Pin tool, drop our anchors. We want to keep these somewhat close together. This is kind of like the liquefying of After Effects, the liquefy tool from Photoshop for After Effects. And it's pretty cool. So you'll see just in a moment what this does. So now we're going to go ahead and make the animation. So we're going to move this current time indicator to the end of the animation. Let me make this full screen. And how did that happen? Okay, so that's so odd. Okay, so now what we're going to do is select any one of these pinpoints and just drag them. Okay, so I took a little break there so I could speed up this process, but I continued dragging them, and I'm doing this kind of sloppy just to not take forever making this tutorial. This is like the 10th time I've recorded this. But as you'll notice, her face has drastically shifted. And first, we're going to press play. You're going to hit the spacebar to activate the animation. So spacebar, let's look at what it does. So the green bar here is just the computer saying, hey, I'm rendering. And the next time it rolls around, like now, you'll see the actual animation taking place. So you'll see towards the end of the timeline here, her face is moving and it's getting affected. Spacebar to pause the animation. I don't want the face to be affected, and I'm going to show you a really quick way to exclude the face. So this is going to be a really quick way to exclude the face from the animation, as I mentioned, and we want to do this with the pen tool. However, we once again want to do this on a separate layer. So we're going to go back to the original file down here and duplicate it, Command C and Command V, and bring it all the way to the top. And on this layer, we will exclude the face with the pen tool right up here. This pen tool, and I'm just going to do this super quick. Let me get a little bit of the ear. Okay, and this should actually pretty much do it. So hit the space bar and you'll see that the animation is happening everywhere else but her face. So that's pretty much it. That's the quickest way to do it. I'm gonna hit spacebar to not kill my computer because the fans are turning on. And just really quickly, I wanted to mention that this setup right here, all of these windows, these panels, this is how I opened up my After Effects. I didn't include, this is like the default setting and it literally says it up here. I didn't add any extra windows or anything like that in case you were curious. So moving on, and probably the most important part is getting this animation out of here and readable to Adobe Aero, which is one of the most annoying things that took me some time to figure out. So we want to turn this animation to a PNG sequence. A PNG sequence is a bunch of files, a bunch of images that make an animation. So we're going to select our files and we're going to go ahead and go to File, Export, Add to Render Queue, and now over here on this panel, Output Module, it says we're going to select Lossless. Going to go to Format. We don't want QuickTime, we want PNG Sequence. This is pretty much it. Press OK, And the next thing you want to do is go to Output 2 and select the folder in which you want to save it to. I've already selected mine and I've exported it, but once you do that and hit render over here, you should be good to go. The one thing to note is that when you do get your file, it's going to look like this. I'm going to show you in a moment. I'm going to go to my After Effects, whoops. After Effects, PNG, moving face. This is what your file looks like. A whole bunch of images making that animation come to life. And that's pretty much it. However, you don't want this, you don't want to drag and drop this into Adobe Aero. So you're going to right click and select Compress Moving Face. And you'll get the zip file, which is good to drag and drop into Adobe Aero. So with that being said, let's open up Adobe Aero. Okay, we've opened up Adobe Aero and we want to make a new file here. We're going to call this Art on Wall Project. Select OK. And the first thing that we want to do is, I know that I want the art piece to go on the wall, so I'm going to go over to the Properties panel and choose the panel type. So vertical surface will be my anchor type. And as you can see, it's vertically, it's facing us, it's almost parallel here. And with this, we should be good to go to start dragging and dropping all of our assets. So let's go ahead and go to the Photoshop image of the clouds. Let's go to the Adobe XD UI card. And then we'll go over to drop in our PNG sequence. We'll bring this zip file right over. It'll take a bit. So the worst thing that you want to do is drag over the big folder with all of the images there, like I mentioned. So to right click, to compress your file, right click and compress, and that's how you get this zip file, which is a lot better to drag and drop into Adobe Aero. And boom, here it is. Okay, so a really cool thing here is that if you have a trackpad and you're on a MacBook Pro, all you have to do is just zoom in with the pinch kind of gesture. But if you have a mouse and you have a wheel, as I do, all you have to do is just scroll upward, and then really to maneuver around in Adobe Aero, I honestly recommend the preview button. And if you have a middle mouse wheel, press down into that wheel and just drag the screen around, and you'll be able to maneuver it and preview your items a lot better. So that was the preview tab. Select the edit tab, and you know, I'm gonna call them tabs. With that being said, since our art is on the wall and I want the card coming from behind it, excuse me, what needs to happen is they're kind of all stacked on top of each other, and this is, Adobe Aero will always do this. However, there's no room for anything to get behind. They're sort of on the same plane. So we're gonna select the art and we're going to bring it forward a little bit. And now these handles, I will probably call them arrows, but I'm gonna go ahead and drag this one to come forward. That's a lot. Because I know that the amount that I want it forward, I'm just going to go ahead and input it here in the Properties panel. And I want it to be around 2. Okay, I want the clouds to be around 4. Now I want another pair of clouds, so I'm going to go ahead and duplicate these clouds. So Command C and Command V on that layer, and we have another set. And I'm going to make this duplicated clouds, I'm going to title it, so I double click to rename it small clouds. And the other one, big clouds. Clouds. we're going to take the small clouds layer and we're going to make it smaller here in the properties panel where it says size. Just going to drag this and pull this handle upward and rotate it a bit, position it back. Really 100% I recommend you just wherever you're at, dropping anything into Adobe Aero and really getting a sense of what these handles are all about. The more you play with them, the more they sort of make sense. So yeah, let's go ahead and preview this to see where we're at. Okay, this is sort of in the way of her mouth. Let's move that a bit. Okay, so not bad. Notice everything is still. The one rule I will say is that you want to try and sort of set up your scene first before adding behaviors, because things can get messy when you want to go back from adding behaviors and readjusting everything. So I do like this setting. The other thing to note here is that when you create the animations, you're going to need to know the exact position of the card or any object to be able to make it move back to the place or to another place that you wanted it to go to. So with that being said, it's really good to also play around in this space to envision where you want things to go. So ideally, I would like this card to come out right here at 16.5 centimeters. And I'm just being exact because, like I said, I've re-recorded this a billion times, so I have a good idea, but also it's not a bad distance away from the piece. It's not too far away, it's pretty close. And it's a good distance, so I'm going to keep this position in mind, this position on the x-axis, and I'm going to highlight it in the properties panel and Command V to save it. And I'm going to go ahead and Command Z to get this card back to its place. Now we're good here. We're going to start adding behaviors, animations to make this come to life. I'm going to go ahead and start with the clouds. So I'm going to select the big clouds, press the running man or the behavior builder, but I'll call him the running man, and add a trigger. The trigger will make it do something. And by something, we have to tell it what it's going to do. So since I want the clouds to move at the start of this experience, we're going to select start. And the action I want it to do is spin. And I want it to spin along the z-axis. We're going to press play to see what that looks like, and that's too fast. I can make anybody dizzy. And I'm going to go ahead and put here like 35 seconds. Because I want it to be slow and I want this to happen infinitely. So we're going to press play. It's hard to see. I'm just zooming in here normally, just like scrolling upward, or you can use your trackpad as well. So this looks good to me. I'm going to select the small clouds here to add this animation to them as well. And I might make them go a little bit slower. So once again, I want them to start at the beginning of the animation. So start, and the action that I want them to do is spin along the z-axis infinitely. And maybe I will make this one go a little bit slower. So we'll put 45 seconds. Press play. You can tell it's moving. Select preview to see everything all together. That's weird. Why is that in the way? So it's a little bit slow. Okay, select edit. Go to your big clouds. Make this about 30 seconds. Press play. Go to the small clouds and make this around 40 seconds and We'll select preview to see it all together. Seems a little slow, might be glitchy. Let's do 35 seconds. Seems almost like nothing is really happening. So that can happen sometimes. It could be finicky. I would see, now that's a little too fast. I would really recommend you trying to play around with it to find what best fits your scene, your scenario, and really messing around with it. Honestly, that's the best way to go about learning all of these programs in general. Okay, that's the one. That looks okay to me for now. Seems to speed up, but we're okay here. Now you'll notice that our PNG sequence wasn't playing, and that's because we didn't tell it to. So we're going to select the art piece and we're going to tell it to play. We're going to select start, and the action that we want it to do is play the images that were in that PNG file. And just by that, you don't really have to do much. You can just select preview and see the animation happening. So it's happening subtly there. So we're going to select edit because we're not quite done yet. And what we want to happen here is once we tap the art, we want the card to come from behind it. So we'll add another trigger to the art card itself, or the moving face that I've titled it. Add a trigger and tap, and I want something to move from it. And in this panel over here, you'll be able to select the layer that you want to move. So I titled the art card UI. And this is when I will be happy to Command V and select the position that I want the card to move to. And hit enter. Now press play to see what happens. Cool, it comes out. To better preview this, to actually see what this will actually play out in your AR kind of experience, hit preview, and by clicking it, you're sort of simulating the tap. So let's click it. All right, and now you'll notice it doesn't go back, and that's because we haven't told it to. So it will stay there forever. If you want to leave it there, completely up to you. Now you know how. However, I do want people to have the option to make it go away, so that way they could just pay attention to the art piece itself. Whichever one makes you happy is completely up to you. So I'm going to hit edit, and we're not going to have that action happen here because this is for the art itself. What we have to do is add the animation to the art card itself. So we've gone to the art card layer, hit a trigger, and on tap, we want it to move, and we want it to move negative 16.5. So negative from where it was over here. And that is really the trick to it. But before I count my cards or stars or however that saying is, let's preview it. So let's have it play out. We're gonna pretend tap, and here comes our card, and tap the card, and there it goes away. So awesome. We have our whole animation, we have our cards, we have our clouds. And if you don't see the animation moving, and sometimes this will happen, don't worry about it. It could be buggy. Most oftentimes it works better in your app to actually play out the experience. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. But just in case, let's see what's going on there. I'm gonna go to that layer, play image. I did forget something. So we want that animation to play infinitely. 100%, I always want it to play. That is part of the art piece itself. Select preview. Typical human, we always want to blame the computer. And now it's playing. Now you can tap it, and we have the card And we've read the information. We want the card to go away. We're going to tap the card and it goes back. The animation's still going. The clouds are still moving. And that is it. Let's pull this up in Adobe Aero on my iPad to see what it looks like from there and what it looks like on a wall. So I'm going to stop I'm going to stop the recording and pull it up on Adobe Aero from my iPad to see what it looks like from there. If anything in this process was confusing, leave a comment below. I'd be happy to respond and clarify any points that I maybe went too fast on. So now we're in Adobe Aero and we've brought up our project that we were just working on. The cool thing is that Adobe Aero family works in a cloud, so if you save it in the cloud area, you can just pull it up on any one of your devices. Those spots are pretty much all the anchor points that is trying to find out your surface. So thankfully the surface has been found, so we will tap to create the surface anchor. Tap the image, and there's our card. Let's go ahead and tap the UI card. That's pretty much it. There you have it. That's it. I know that's an exaggeration for the amount of programs that we just walked through. I really hope you got a lot to take away from this tutorial. It was hard to make this very short, so I understand if you have many questions about any point of this creation process. I'd be happy to respond. Leave any questions, comments, concerns in the comments below this video, and I'll be happy to help you out there. Other than that, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.